Good evening, Canby. Welcome to the, March 16th, 2022 City Council regular meeting. If you please stand for the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this great community. Thank you for the leaders that we have assembled here in this community and here on the dais this evening. I thank you for our first responders. We have tremendous gratitude to our firefighters and our police and all of our first responders. I especially lift up the citizens of Ukraine and the devastation and the heartache that is going on there. I pray for that country and those people that this ends quickly. I ask for these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you. Next on the agenda this evening is an opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. This is for an opportunity for community members to address the council on items not on the agenda this evening. If you are attending in person, please complete one of the yellow testimony cards here and please hand it to Maya there at the end of the dais, and she'll make sure I get it. And then I don't know, at least at the beginning of the meeting, Myra, there wasn't anyone that had dialed in to say that they were going to speak. So I think everyone that's going to speak is here in the cards. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Staff and the city council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during the input before the meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. I ask that you make sure that all your comments are directed towards me, the mayor. And any questions are also directed towards me, the mayor, and we'll make sure that we, like I said, get those questions answered as soon as we can. First card I have here is Barry Johnson.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I had talked to Joe earlier today, and if he could kind of remind all of us, since it's been quite a while, of what our code of conduct says about public comment and decorum in the meeting. Is that okay?
Sure. I don't think I necessarily left anything out, but okay.
No, the discussion we had was the section 7 of your December 18 policies and operating guidelines. And so it's basically, while the council in session, all persons shall preserve order and decorum. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous shall be barred by the mayor for further attendance at said meeting. So for the continuation of that particular meeting, unless permission for continued attendance is granted by the council. And it says, we may agree, but we will be respectful of one another. All comments will be directed to the issue at hand and personal attacks should be avoided. And that every member of the public and every council member desiring to speak shall address the mayor, which you did cover. Upon recognition by the mayor, shall confine your comments to the question under debate or avoiding all in decorous language and references to personalities or in abiding by those rules that I mentioned about being respectful of one another. And then the enforcement of which the chief of police shall be the ex officio sergeant at arms of the council, and they can carry out the orders of the mayor, who is the person in charge as chair of the meeting, and by charter, the person to enforce the rules of the council, which these are. So that's primarily the decorum that I guess the expectation is. Clearly, with citizen comments, the universe of commentary is open to whatever the citizens are bringing to you. We have the 3-minute clock up, and so we'll try to abide by that.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Does that suffice, Councilor Spoon?
Yeah, it had been quite a while since we had reviewed that. And so it was a little bit different than I recalled. I thought it was a nice reminder for all of us.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry, it seems very dark up here on the dais. And so,
Yeah.
and I know that we've got a video on the screen. So I was just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the light's on me.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me address you, the council, and the citizens of Canby. My name is Barry Johnson. I'm the chairman of the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. The Park and Recreation Advisory Board has made steady progress in the past 3 to 4 years while faced with some tremendous obstacles. An understaffed Parks Department from 2012 to present, Parks Department catching up on deferred maintenance beginning with the implementation of the Parks maintenance fee in 2018, city staff turnover from 2020 to present, causing delays, pandemic beginning in 2020, continuing to present, the fires of 2020 and the ice storm of 2021. Over the years, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board have recommended many projects, including a dog park, only to be told we couldn't move forward without the completion of a new parks master plan. This was told to us by both the city council and the previous finance director. Our board then asked the finance director for a list of projects that could be worked on while the parks master plan was underway. Parks Board was given a list dated August 11th, 2020. From this list, the Parks Department, in coordination with the Parks Advisory Board, has completed or is in process of completing the following. The Maple Street splash pad dedicated 2021. Replace park signs at Community, Legacy, Locust, Maple, Timber, and Waite Park. Upgrades made to Locust Street Park in 2021-2022, which includes new playground equipment, newly paved basketball court, improvements to the bathrooms, and coming later this year, a new picnic set shelter. Treatment of the community pond 2021-2022 and Maple Street Phase 2 2021-2022 that includes the new pickleball courts. Once specific projects were determined, they were brought before City Council for their approval before moving forward. City Council approved these projects unanimously. The positive working relationship created here between the Parks Department, the Parks Advisory Board, and City Council at that time made it possible to accomplish the above projects while waiting for the Parks Master Plan. Despite the process described, it would appear some city councilors feel it necessary to bypass the Park and Recreation Advisory Board and ignore the completion of the Parks Master Plan in order to try to fast track their personal agenda. The very master plan the city has spent $250,000 on, and that they themselves told us we needed to have for moving parks projects forward. One councilor, when discussing the dog park, stated in an October meeting, "I don't need your board approval and I don't need your SDC money. I have 28 items to push through in the next 14 months. When asked why 14 months, the councilor stated, "That's when I have the votes." It makes me wonder, in light of what has come out about violating meeting laws by 4 of the councilors, what other backdoor deals have been going on?
I think there's a point of order here, Mayor, regarding what the attorney had to say.
He's stating what he experienced.
I haven't mentioned no one.
I'm not sure what,
It's your call. I brought a point of order.
that's fine. And I don't, I mean, it was a conversation piece a couple meetings ago. I mean, I can't, he's entitled to make his presentation and say his piece. He's not being boisterous of any kind. I think he's making his point. Please continue.
I got one more little bit.
Please finish.
If citizen councils, commissions, or advisory boards are not going to be partnered with, let alone listened to, then why does the council even have citizen input? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate it. Next citizen for input is Lisa Potter regarding the Parks Master Plan. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My comments this evening reflect my concerns as a 22-year citizen. As a volunteer member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, I am concerned about the way two councilors have conducted themselves regarding the Parks Master Plan. Initially, we were limited in project implementation because the previous finance director, with the council's support, insisted that we wait until the master plan was completed. As the master plan progressed, Councilor Spoon and Bangs began injecting their personal preferences into the process, refusing to wait until the master plan was completed. Councilor Parker told us the council wanted to fly at the 30,000-foot level and allow the Parks Board to bring forward recommendations based on the needs of our community. Now the process is directed by council members from the 100-foot level, usurping the role of the Parks Board. I question, what is our role? We were ignored when we recommended the planning of a dog park be held until the master plan process was complete. Councilor Spoon has been insisting it be a priority and placed at the entrance to the Public Works compound. The cost estimate at nearly $1 million and at a location that will be exposed to lights and loud sirens from fire engines, ambulances, and emergency vehicles leaving the station and approaching territorial. As citizen representatives, we express interest in exploring options that could possibly be less expensive and more appropriate for dogs and their families. The board has been shot down, disregarded, and even ignored. I was present with another Parks Board member in a meeting with Councilor Spoon on Thursday, October 28th of last year, when she said the dog park is her legacy and she had some 28 projects that she wanted to complete in 14 months. She boasted she didn't need the board's approval. She had the money and had the 4-2, meaning she had the votes on the council to accomplish her goals. I thought I was appointed to the board to listen to our citizens and prioritize projects based on an updated master plan, projects that meet our needs of the community and be fiscally responsible to taxpayers, not fulfill legacies for council members. Finally, allow me to read from policies and operating guidelines for members of the Canby City Council, page 8, item 19, independence of boards and commissions. Because of the value of the independent advice of boards and commissions to the public decision-making process, council members shall refrain from using their position to unduly influence the deliberations or outcomes of boards and commission proceedings. In my opinion, I think the city council members should begin following their own published and approved policies and operating guidelines. Please respect the process and act in the best interests of Canby.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Jason Patton, you're next. First up, you have two items. First up is the URA meeting that was presumably we just had, and then discussing alleys.
Yes,
Okay.
that's one item, and then just an update from the budget committee.
Correct. I have
Do you
two
want to
separate.
separate them, or do you want me to just get them all out at once?
Why don't you do the URA one first, and then want to make sure you get your 3 minutes for each card, sir.
If I need that, it's going to be, there's clearly a problem. So Jason Patton, 1040 North Birch Street here in Canby. First, I just want to say I didn't participate, but I was here for the URA discussion. And I think that prioritizing the alleys is something that should be done. It was mentioned using street maintenance fee money possibly to do that. The street maintenance fee, as I've talked about before, is a shrinking fund of money because it has not been updated for years. And its goal was to do projects that had a direct impact on the most number of citizens in the community. So I think if there is a funding source to update those alleys to help the downtown core, and that street maintenance fee money can be reserved for other street projects, which average citizens complain about quite often, I think that should be done. So that's just my 2 cents on that as a citizen. So that's that one. The second one I was going to kind of give you an update on is from the budget committee. The mayor, I've been working with the mayor, Eric, the new finance director, And on the 23rd, we will be having an interview of an individual who I think it's the 22nd or 23rd.
It was the 30th.
No, that's Planning Commission.
Right.
Yes, I believe the 23rd is the interview of an individual for one of the 2 open positions on Budget Committee. So I will continue to push to fill out the rest of the 1 remaining position. So that is that. And then with Council Liaison Varwig not here, I'll just let you know that for the Planning Commission, we have 2 applicants, and we will be meeting on the 30th. Both Don, the mayor, Councilor Varwig, and myself to interview those candidates to hopefully have filled out Planning Commission for the first part of April. So those are 2 updates from those committees in which I serve as chair on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate the update. My final card is Mr. Kevin Starrett.
For the record, Kevin Starrett, I've been a resident of Canby for about 20 years. I found the lecture on decorum particularly ironic. Mr. Mayor, you recently said I didn't sign on for this, and I believe many Canby residents would echo those sentiments. During your last meeting, we learned that members of this council worked together in violation of ethics rules to push through their agenda. We learned that while doing so, they threw in some insults and false innuendos. Okay, I didn't expect the public to see that. I get it. But it's what took place while this matter was being discussed that was most troubling. We saw council members sit smirking about it, all from the comfort and isolation of their computer cameras. We had a council member try to silence a valued and active member of our community because she's moved outside the city limits. I noticed that no such concerns were raised by liberals when we had a radical race-basing Marxist agitator from Portland invited to express his outrage about a float in our General Canby Day parade and his fear of shopping in Canby, something he no doubt wished to do regularly in between riots. That same council member continues to attack my organization for having the nerve to be involved in the political process, something we've done for over 20 years in strict compliance with the laws. Those laws require that we report everything we do. And unlike members of this council, we comply with them. The left never misses an opportunity to try to silence anyone who disagrees with them. Maybe we should limit political activity to the teachers' union. The same council member was predictably outraged by the public records request that brought this issue to light, and now we know why. What's really troubling is not the violation of the ethics rules. People who actually had any ethics would have admitted to what they did, apologized for the error, and tried their best to correct it. You know, stuff happens. Instead, what we saw was a carefully choreographed effort to dodge all responsibility with a roadmap provided by the city attorney, who, by the way, serves at the pleasure of the people involved in this scam. That was disgraceful, but nothing new. Shifting the blame and donning the mantle of victims when caught engaged in illegal activity is kind of a theme with some members of our council. It was even the theme used to introduce our most recently appointed member. And if any of you want me to go into detail about talking about that, by all means, ask me. I'd be more than happy to share any time. The folks involved in this behavior may well be hoping that most Canby residents aren't paying attention and are relying on the complicity of the sophomoric Facebook pages that masquerade as media in this town. But while it certainly looks like they got away with it this time, sooner or later, you run out of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starrett. I have no more cards, so we'll move on to the Vietnam Veterans Day proclamation. Whereas on January 12, 1962, United States Army pilots lifted more than 1,000 South Vietnamese service members over jungle and underbrush to capture a National Liberation Front stronghold near Saigon. Operation Chopper marked America's first combat mission against the Viet Cong and the beginning of one of our longest and most challenging wars. Through more than a decade of conflict that tested the fabric of our nation, the service of our men and women in uniform stood true. 54 years after the fateful mission, we honor the more than 3 million Americans who served. We pay tribute to those we have laid to rest, and we reaffirm our dedication to showing a generation of veterans that respect and support of a grateful nation. Whereas the Vietnam War is a story of service members of different backgrounds, colors, and creeds who came together to complete a daunting mission. It is a story of Americans from every corner of our nation who left the warmth of family to serve the country they loved. It is a story of patriots who braved the line of fire, who cast themselves into harm's way to save a friend, who fought hour after hour, day after day, to preserve the liberties we hold dear. From Ira Drang to Q, they won every major battle of the war and upheld the highest traditions of our armed forces. Whereas 11 years of combat left their imprint on a generation, thousands returned home bearing shrapnel and scars. Still more were burdened by the invisible wounds of post-traumatic stress, of Agent Orange, of memories that would never fade. More than 58,000 people laid down their lives in the service of our nation. Now and forever, their names are etched into two faces of black granite, a lasting memorial to those who bore conflict's greatest cost. And whereas our veterans answered our country's call and served with honor, and on March 29th, 1973, the last of our troops left Vietnam. Yet in one of the war's most profound tragedies, many of these men and women came home to be shunned or neglected, to face treatment unbefitting their courage and a welcome unworthy of their example. We must never let this happen again. Today, we reaffirm one of our most fundamental obligations to show all who have worn the uniform of the United States the respect and dignity they deserve, and to honor their sacrifice by serving them as well as they have served us. Over half a century after those helicopters swept off the ground and into the annals of history, we pay tribute to the fallen, the missing, the wounded, the millions who served, and the millions who awaited their return. Our nation stands stronger for their service, and on Vietnam Veterans Day, we honor the proud legacy with our deepest gratitude. Now, therefore, I, Brian Hodson, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Canby, do hereby proclaim March 29th, 2022 as Vietnam Veterans Day. And I call upon all Americans to observe this day with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities that commemorate the anniversary of the Vietnam War. Given under my hand the 16th day of March, 2022. And I think we've got a couple people here for this. Morning, Chair. It's all these years. It is. Thank you. Did you want to? Oh, Jamie wants to take a quick.
If that's all right. Great. 1, 2, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to take a moment and say something?
If I could.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Pat Shower. I'm a member of the Canby VFW as well as a member of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial here. 50 years ago, on April 25th, 1972, I left Vietnam after serving an 18-month tour over there. I came home and was discharged the next day out of Fort Lewis. And quite honestly, when I left there, I was really shocked at the welcoming that I got, as well as many other Vietnam veterans. I stand here before you today, as I have several times in the past, with Miss Brian Hodson was mayor during several of those, and I'm very humbled to the fact that you have proclaimed March 29th, 2022 as the National Vietnam Veterans Day in Canby. For all my brothers and sisters who lived and died in the Vietnam War, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for this proclamation.
Thank you for you and your friends and your service.
Thank you. Hi, Irene.
Hello, I'm his shadow. Irene Rashears, Canby Rural VFW Auxiliary member, and I too, it's especially meaningful that we have been celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Vietnam Veterans Era Memorial here in Canby. It's also a Blue Star Memorial Marker site, which is a really great honor. And we wanted to say thank you to you folks for remembering every year our National Vietnam Veterans Day, March 29th. I'd like to present a postcard that we made for the 10th anniversary as a reminder of the Vietnam era veterans. We have many people that didn't go over, but they were, back stateside to help support those that worked on the helicopters to send over there, the clothing, the food rations. Well, some of them were World War II, but anyway, recent things. But we heard things about, we've got to have this program saying, I'm sorry, Vietnam veterans, because you treated so shabbily, as Pat had alluded to. And it's not an I'm sorry. It was wonderful that our country decided to have a day of remembrance and honor to say thank you, not I'm sorry. And we appreciate you for all your effort to remember our guys and gals that served over there and those that also didn't serve over there because they were the support troops of the Vietnam era. And so thank you so much. And just remember those that if you have family members or friends or neighbors, just remember them on March 29th because it's a tough day too for them. So, but to be remembered and be thanked, that's just the greatest thing to do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Irene. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda this evening is a public hearing. It is a public hearing regarding an appeal of the Planning Commission decision on conditional use and design review applications for Old Mac Steel Processing Facility on Sequoia Parkway and 13th Avenue. Joe, as I understand it, we have new information since between the Planning Commission ruling and where we are this evening.
That is my understanding, and I'm looking out for Don Hardy, our planning director, to verify that for sure.
Mr. Hardy, hello. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there has been additional information provided in the appeal for that application.
Now, is this new information that should go back to the Planning Commission, or is this just clarification on items that clear up what we would potentially be discussing this evening in this public hearing?
There's two elements to that. One is information regarding employment, which affects the nature of the land use applications for that. And secondly, a noise study that was not part of the original application.
Okay. So, and now in the past, when there's been new information introduced, we have remanded it back to the Planning Commission. Is that necessary based on what we have here this evening? Is it new information that the planning could help me out here? Because
it's really at your discretion. Council has the authority to review that or to remand that back to the Planning Commission. So I maybe look to Joe to provide some clarity on that.
Thank you.
I will say as a matter of past practice, whenever you have had essential evidence to that has the ask of the applicant / appellant is to add it into the record, you've demanded that it goes back and goes to the record below so that it solidifies that record so that if it then gets appealed, you're just dealing with what is on appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do we need an official motion to remand it then?
Well, yeah,
I would move that we remand the decision back to the Planning Commission to hear the new evidence that's being brought forward.
Second.
Okay. Motion is on the table to remand the hearing that's before us, or the items regarding the conditional use and design review application for Old Mac Steel Processing Facility on Sequoia Parkway back to the Planning Commission. And it's been motion by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon. Any discussion on this? Yes, Councilor Banks.
I just wish to declare an ex parte contact. I've met the CEO of the Canby American Steel plant. I'm close friends with her close friends. I don't believe I have a conflict of interest and still want to vote, but I wanted to declare that in advance.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Councilor Parker, did you have something?
Yeah, I've been reading the staff report. This isn't a huge magnitude of new information, but I just think on principle, I would like the council review when things are appealed to the council, that we review it based on the entire body of record and whether there have been errors in procedure. I don't want us to be a de novo court where we start analyzing new information. That's the job of the Planning Commission. They've already taken a look at this. And for us within a few hours to try and get up to speed on this, I don't think that's a good idea. So I support, and I guess, Don, we've done this 3 times now since you come on board here.
I know there's been a time before I came on board, and
Okay.
there's been 2 times since I've been here that there's been remands.
Well, I'm glad we're consistent then. Thank you, Don.
Councilor Spoon?
Yeah, I'll just add for those of you that may not be familiar, usually this, we have a practice of remanding back to Planning Commission out of respect for the record and the process that they have to go through to come to a decision that then gets appealed to us. So it's not uncommon for us to do it. And I think a number of you came to speak or with interest in this, but it is kind of been our practice. So I will be supporting, obviously, since I seconded the motion, to send it back to Planning Commission so they can review all the new information, make their determination, and then if it gets appealed, we're dealing with the same record of information as they are.
Okay. Any other comment? I guess all those in favor then of remanding it back to the Planning Commission?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes 4.
He
Sorry,
raised his hand.
David, I missed you. Sorry.
He did. He raised
You're
his
good. Okay, that passes 5-0 to remand it back. So
Thank you.
thank you, Dan. So those of you that came, I thank you for coming. We'll pick this up at another date. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the January 19, 2022 City Council regular meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone?
Oh, second. All right. Second.
Bueller?
Usually you don't have to solicit us.
That would be a first to have the consent agenda not get seconded. So the
It's just the minutes.
Too controversial.
motion to approve the consent agenda was done by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Bangs. The consent agenda includes the approval of the minutes of the January 19th, 2022 City Council regular meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. Next on the agenda this evening is ordinances and resolutions. So the first one is the consider ordinance number 1569, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to contract with or expand budgeted funds to Canby Utility for the undergrounding of power on South Ivy Street. So this is a second reading. We discussed this our last meeting. And so this is just that. So we've got new improved information regarding a partnership with Cub to underground the power along South Ivy when that project gets going. We do have the possibility of taking that all the way to South Ivy and 13th, which would be great. Scott, am I leaving anything out on this project?
You covered it, Mayor.
I will just add thank you to Canby Utility for their extra work on this and for Jerry and Public Works team to sharpen their pencils and find a better, faster, cheaper way to get it done. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Any other comments or questions for staff before I take a motion? Yes, Councilor Spoon.
I have a quick question. So the map still shows the undergrounding ending at about 11th, but the plan, so I just wanted to make sure we were still on the same page. It still looks like it's going all the way to the 13th.
Well,
Okay.
it's planned to 11th, and then if,
Yeah.
depending on inflationary measures, costs of product, labor, supplies, materials, et cetera, we have a hairs of a chance that we could take it all the way.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. If people looked at the map, someone asked me about it and they looked at the map and they said, well, so I was like, I think that's the case. Just wanted to make sure that's still where we were at.
Or I would add just that our intent, that is all accurate, but our intent very much is to do what we can to figure out a way to get that to 13th. We're hopeful, but we're not quite at the point where we can say it's absolute with where we're at. But
for sure.
Yeah.
Great. Councilor Parker, do you have a comment or question? No?
I'll make a motion then.
In 1 second. Councilor Jordan, anything on your end on this one?
No, I'm good.
Councilor Spoon.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1569, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to contract with or expend budgeted funds to Canby Utility for the underground of power on South Ivy Street to come up for second reading on March 16th, but just
It's roll call on the fly.
for the underground of power on South Ivy Street, period.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry.
And the fact that she took that out, we can do that as amended. So we'll make sure that it gets in the record that way.
Second?
Thank you. Motion's been made by Councilor Spoon and seconded by Councilor Banks to approve ordinance 1569, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to contract with or expend budgeted funds to Canby Utility for the undergrounding of power on South Ivy Street. Say that 3 times fast. Second reading, roll call vote.
Counselor Banks,
Aye.
Counselor Bajorn,
Aye.
Counselor Parker,
Aye.
Counselor Spoon,
Aye.
Council President Hensley,
Aye.
and that's it.
Okay. Motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is consider resolution number 1363, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute documents to relinquish real property to the Oregon Department of Transportation. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor Hodson and Council. This is, we're asking for your approval of this resolution that would transfer, we would relinquish and transfer to Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT, 437 square feet. This is property that we obtained in 2020, and it was necessary that we did that for completion of the Quiet Zone project. The transfer is it's property that's located in the vicinity of Elm Street and 99. It's basically some sidewalk area property related to the Quiet Zone. Now that we're concluding the project, the city has no need, and in fact, it's a liability for us to keep this, and ODOT is willing to take the property, and it just makes sense to do this. So this is a simple transfer of a property that we held while we completed a project and then transferring at the end of the project.
Great. The cost of the property was what?
We paid $8,188 for it 2 years ago.
And we're giving it away for free.
It was, yes, we are doing that.
But ODOT will
It was a
maintain
cost of doing the project, yes.
Thank you. I feel better.
ODOT will maintain it. Well, they're supposed to. Well, hopefully they do it better than they do 99.
We will relinquish our responsibility to maintain and liabilities and all that, so.
Well, I don't like giving the state anything, but okay. I'll make the motion so we can move this big meeting forward. I move to approve resolution 1363, authorizing the city administrator to execute the relinquishment deed to transfer 437 square feet of property at the intersection of Elm Street and Highway 99E to the state of Oregon.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve resolution number 1363, authorizing the city administrator to execute the relinquishment deed to transfer 437 square feet of property at the intersection of Elm Street and Highway 99E to the state of Oregon. Any further discussion, comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is a discussion of some old business and update on the dog park.
And Mr. Mayor and Council, if you'll bear with us for just a moment, we're going to pull up a slideshow here and then share this.
like David 2 weeks ago.
Initially, the sound was a little warbly, yes.
Sounds like his audio is overdriven.
Maya, can you come in the mouse while you're there too, so I can just.
It's beyond my technical abilities.
You're doing great tonight.
Pardon me?
You're doing terrific tonight. This is a flawless movie.
Good. I'll make note of that tonight. When I don't have one, when I need to remind you.
Write down the date.
When you mark, you feel like a diary.
I think it's on the thumb drive.
And it was a straight up comment. It wasn't a backhanded one.
Yeah.
I think it's on. There we go.
Sorry.
Back in my day as a staff member, that we only had to worry about the tripod tipping over. So take your time.
Maybe clicking on the icon itself.
Have one open already down below.
Oh, maybe. Good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm so glad I don't do this every day anymore.
Well,
Will the PDF version of it open right above it?
Try that and see.
You scroll through it.
I can work with that.
Yeah.
That'll work. And then would you mind resharing? Oh, I think the screen is being shared, isn't it?
No,
It doesn't say so.
it's not.
Oh, maybe.
I'm looking at the Zoom and it's not sharing yet.
Thanks.
David, can you let us know when you see something?
Absolutely, we'll do.
Okay. Sharing now.
Yeah, there it is.
All right.
Thank you, Maya. All right. Now let's see if I can do this. All right. Thanks for your patience on that. So Mayor and Council, this is a follow-up conversation to information and kind of an ongoing conversation that you had requested, gave direction to staff to follow up from prior conversations that we've had regarding the potential to create a dog park on what is sort of commonly referred to as our wayside property, but in fact, this is technically on the Three Sisters property, which is directly adjacent to the wayside property, but it's essentially at Territorial and Redwood, where our Public Works entry road is off of Territorial. So if you'll bear with these, the slides in this format, we'll just kind of do our best to keep the main slide, and I'm talking about centered on the screen here. But we last presented to you background on this potential dog park. In fact, we went fairly in depth on the whole property there and a number of issues. And I'm not going to I'm not going to revisit all of that. We'll do just a very quick revisit to some of the important background, but what we're really doing is presenting some new information for you and then seeking where you might want to direct this. So we presented last on December 1st of 21. Council at that meeting provided direction to staff to prepare plans and bring back the necessary steps to implement a dog park at this site. A little bit of quick background that we think is probably most pertinent. The city acquired what is actually called the Three Sisters Ranch property in 2008 using sewer funds in the amount of $750,000. So this is on the corner, I guess it would be the southwest corner of that property. The sewer funds are important in that we're going to address that in a little bit, is that we may, if we were to move forward, we may have to sort of reimburse our own sewer fund for this different use. Again, it's located adjacent to the Wayside property, but is not included in the 2004 Wayside Master Plan. In 2013, the city and other parties collaborated to develop a draft design for a formal fenced dog park next to Territorial Road at this site. What came out of that was a design, kind of a preliminary design. We call that a 30% design. That's kind of a technical term when we say 30%. Just to clarify what that means is the design is roughly what it would look like, but it is not taken all the way to a formal construction drawing level. So there would, when you take something from 30% to 100%, it just simply means it looks the same, but there is more detail to it, and it would actually be a construction drawing at 100%. So saying 30% doesn't mean that it's only 30% of the elements are included or something like that. So that's kind of just a technical term. And it includes, that design included an active dog area, a shy dog area, sometimes also called the small dog area, parking, and some other amenities that would be relevant to a dog park. So first here, let's see, actually, maybe I can see what we can do to blow this up a bit here. So the first rendering here is the original 2013 design. We talked about this at the last discussion. We went pretty far in depth on that. This is Territorial. The mouse is being a little sensitive here. So this is Territorial, and then this is the entry to our Public Works facility. The city limit boundary is kind of roughly, the mouse is not cooperating. I apologize. I'm trying to get it to go about there, but the city limits is sort of roughly somewhere in here. And then to the right on the screen is outside of the city limits. And in fact, outside of our urban growth boundary, which is relevant to the conversation. It has to do with development and permitting. So we talked about this design at the last conversation on December 1st. And there was a consensus to continue to move this idea forward. However, with the idea that if we were to take this design and essentially turn it, do basically a 90-degree rotation, we would take the parking lot and a lot of our utilities that are on the bottom of the screen and the rendering here and put them inside the city limit boundary, which then would make our connection to utilities more doable. It would make the permitting process better from a perspective of getting this project done. And then basically the open area of the park would mostly remain out into the unincorporated area that we would have to work with the county on the permitting process. So after discussing that and receiving your direction, we went back. Mr. Nalzine, our Public Works Director, and Jeff Snyder, our Parks Maintenance Supervisor, have been working on this and kind of coming up with a a revised version of the plan that would be more developable if that's where the council wants to go. So this is still what we call a 30% design, which means it's a high level view, and it would need to still be taken to a full design where we complete all of the construction documents and so forth. But what we've essentially done is just turned it to the right 90 degrees and brought all of this area that was on the kind of the south and the territorial side into the city limits. So this is the parking, this is hookups to utilities, the dog wash area and water access, and some of those types of amenities are all mainly reside within the city limits. And then to the right, if I can get the mouse to follow along with me here, the big open area where essentially the fenced dog run is at, and then the smaller dog or the shy dog area here mostly is outside our UGB. The city does own the property, just to be clear. It's not, when I say outside the city, I don't mean that we do not own that, but it's not within our own jurisdiction as far as the permitting goes. And I can go back to this if we need to look at more specifics there. So some additional information for us here. As far as the land use process, this revised version of the plan has a little less than 1 acre of it of the developed park amenities would reside within the city limits, and that leaves just about 4 acres of the park outside the city limits and outside the urban growth boundary. So in the county part of it, the county zoning is rural, residential, farm forest, 5 acre or RFF5. And from what we have gathered, and we've done some of the preliminary research on the land use, it does allow for recreational and governmental uses. And so we believe that would be a permitted use. We haven't completed the process of going through the permitting with the county, and that will be discussed as part of our next steps. But we do believe it's an allowable use. The corner site where this is proposed is not within the Willamette Greenway boundary or the 100-year floodplain or within 100 feet of Willow Creek. We talked pretty extensively about that, I think, at our last discussion, which would create more challenge to development. So it is not within those areas. It's important to note the last bullet, no land use approvals or permits were acquired when this was originally being discussed in 2013. And we have done some preliminary research, but we have not yet done any of the actual permitting or land use approvals. And we'll talk more about that. Some other considerations. Again, I mentioned the sewer fund payment. So we did buy this with sewer funds. We bought all of that Three Sisters property. We believe that if we were going to build this dog park, we would take a proportional amount of that $750,000 as per how much acreage that is to the whole purchase, and we would need to pay that back. I think we have a question.
Yeah, and I could wait until after you're done, but the question is directly relevant to this.
Sure.
How many acres total was that Three Sisters property?
It was 34.5.
And would this be...
This is a little, it's 3.99, and I think you'll see on the map here in a second, the part that's inside the Three Sisters property, because we're proposing 0.92 acres inside the city limits for the infrastructure and the utilities, and I don't mean to jump on top.
No, that's good.
But then 3.99 acres would be what is in that corner. And so that would be roughly about 10% or a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. A few other points here. These are, again, just kind of other considerations that we thought were relevant to the discussion, noting that the facility would share the access driveway with Public Works and the soon to be completed new north side Canby Fire Station. The mitigation to that would be that the driveway, and I can go back to the map if you'd like, but the driveway to the parking lot for the dog park would be a one-way in and one-way out. So as you turn in off of Territorial there, if you're coming into the dog park, there would be an immediate right turn in one way in and one way out instead of having it stack up kind of near the intersection. And also noting here that the four-way stop at Territorial and Redwood will be installed. Not yet, right?
It will be going out to bid.
Yeah. We're working on that as a project here in the pretty near future. We're also noting here at the on the last bullet point, we've had a discussion that we're going to be, if we were going to proceed with a project here, we know there's been discussion about some linkages between the Wayside, the Three Sisters, the logging trail, and Eco Park nearby, just to the west. Connections to that. We're also, in addition to the new four-way stop that's coming up at that intersection, we're also working on a new sidewalk connecting between Territorial, Redwood, and along Territorial down to Eco Park. There's been some discussion over, while we've had this conversation about Dog Park and others, I know there's been interest and discussion in the potential to have some permanent restrooms built somewhere in this vicinity that would serve all of the different recreational amenities. So this dog park, if it was built, would add yet more kind of need for a future restroom. So we think that with use of we're going to talk about funding in just a minute, but with use of some of the other funds, potentially parks funding, and I would suggest we may want to have some additional visit about this with our Parks and Rec board, that I think this is something that has been desired and discussed, this restroom idea, that it could be sited near the vicinity of the dog park, perhaps on the west side of Territorial or the entry road, but that would serve the dog park, Eco Park nearby, the logging road trail, the whole Wayside property. So we could take a further dive on that if you'd wish to discuss that tonight, or we could save that for another time. We also think that would be eligible for some of our ARPA funding that we've been discussing, and we'll continue to have some conversations. So speaking of funding, so at the current design, we did a professional engineer's cost estimate, and that cost estimate is $770,000 to complete the project as it's proposed. We have some options, and the ask for staff was to look at how we could do this without utilizing any of our parks fees or our parks STC. So here are what we've come up with. I think we talked about these with you at the last discussion. We could apply the revenue from the former Canby Public Library. The sale of that was just a little more than $500,000. Yeah, thank you. About $500,000. We could do an interfund loan from the wastewater treatment plant fund. We have a pretty large contingency there. We could just use general fund money. And we also have some savings on a capital project that's in the current year's budget that we would potentially be able to apply. We've specifically noted a generator project for the City Hall Civic Center. We're actually going to be able to do that much more economically than we budgeted for. So we have some capital project savings that we might be able to apply. Those are the non-parks types of funds that you asked us to come up with some suggestions on what we could do to build this. So you could use some or a number of those if you want. So in terms of next steps, kind of where we're at, what we're asking for is council direction. If you'd like to proceed with the revised design as has been presented, certainly we could explore additional options on that design or any other options that you might want to talk about. We would also like to get a sense of direction on preferred funding sources. We would actually need to budget for this in the next funding or the next budget cycle. So we don't have to make that decision now, but I think some direction so we would be able to start planning for the budget as would be appropriate. The land use process, we have to go through the formal land use process with two different jurisdictions, our own city of Canby and the county. Each of those are separate, and the process is if and when you give us direction, we would first do what's called, we would apply for a pre-application process, which is sort of a kind of a first cut at what will be involved in this. We would do that with both jurisdictions. That will then guide, we would use if council's direction was to use the plan as has proposed, the revised plan or some version of that, we would use that with our pre-application discussions with the two land use jurisdictions and use the feedback from the pre-app conferences to tell us then what the final design would look like. So in other words, those land use processes might tell us that we might need to do some things a little bit differently, and we would then take that guidance and adjust the plan accordingly. And then from there, it's completing the designs to 100% and beginning a bid process for construction. And of course, all of this has to come back to council for final approval when we do bidding processes. I would suspect too, we would have a revisit with you when we get through our initial land use processes. And if there's anything, significantly different, of course, we'd want to talk about that. So that is a pretty brief walkthrough update. And at this point, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Also want to acknowledge that Mr. Nelzine is here to help answer questions. He's been very involved in helping to pull this information together.
Yes, Councilor Spoon.
Thank you. Can we go back to the revised plans? I can't read from here. I certainly can't read what each item is. But about in the center, just above the smaller section is like another lighter square. Yes, just out of curiosity, I'm just kind of curious what some of the components are, if all the components came over and what that is.
I'm going to ask Jerry to come up and help with some of the components here.
I don't remember exactly. I apologize what that is. I looked at that earlier and I forget. And it's hard.
Can you read on that?
Yeah, this is very hard to read.
Yeah, I apologize.
It's a dog pool.
A splash pad for the dogs.
Oh, it's a steel shelter.
There we go. That's our shelter.
Okay, with benches. And then is there still like a paw washing station? So if dogs are muddy, before people put them back in their cars, they can give them the old rinse?
And that's the advantage. We were able to have sanitary sewer to connect that to the storm. And then you'll see the top of the parking lot is where the porta potties are area up at the top of the parking lot.
What's number 17?
Utilities?
Existing utility. Okay, I know what that is from right there. That's the box. The utility box is already there.
The fiber optics building.
Yeah. Okay. And so that steel shed or the steel, not shed, the like covering would have benches and stuff so people could sit and observe and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's the fire?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you got the floor.
Is there still a doggy timeout? there was a, if your dog, it's very common. They'll have like a little square that if your dog gets overactive, you can just put him in like a timeout for a few minutes.
Penalty box?
I was gonna say, kind of a penalty box.
Bad dog spot.
Yes. I timeout. I prefer timeout to penalty box. It might be the item right between the two next to the steel shed. I just can't see. Or is that bad?
Yeah, it's hard to read.
Not
it's
critical
real
right
rough.
now. Yeah. Not critical right now. It's just curious.
We basically took everything from the other one and moved it. And there might be a few things we were in a hurry to get this, so
Sure.
they got missed.
Yeah, no, I was just curious.
You go first, Chris.
No, I didn't have my button on.
Councilor Banks.
Okay, where's the fire department?
Up if you follow the access road directly.
Further up this way, if you're able to follow the cursor here, it's kind of up, it's almost right at the entrance to Public Works.
Is your road in there big enough to accommodate the extra traffic for here?
Yeah, now that Canby Utilities moved over across town, that frees up a lot of traffic in there. Not knowing exactly what the workload of the fire department's going to be coming out of there, I'm not sure. But the way that with the four-way stop going in is going to improve the safety there and allow.
Yeah. When do we expect the master plan to be completed?
My understanding is that probably around the end of this month or the beginning of next month is we're going to have something close to I guess what would be a first draft of the final plan. And then it's a matter of putting that in the queue with when we can present it to, we were talking about doing a presentation jointly with the council and the Parks and Rec Board for the presentation. So it might be either April or possibly even into the first meeting in May when we can get that queued up with the council's schedule.
It is important to me to honor.
Excuse me.
Motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilor Banks. I just want to make sure I'm very clear about this. That would be the first presentation to you and to the Parks Board of the first draft, and that then would inform your feedback. Parks Board feedback would inform the consultant, and they would then present a final plan for adoption after that date. So just wanted to be clear about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Makes sense.
What is the cost of the pre-application process and permitting?
I'm not sure. Do you, Ryan? Great. Ryan Potter, senior planner Ryan Potter, who's an expert at that, is going to help us answer that question.
The county's is $850.
Okay. So that's not a huge cost to bear.
And ours, I believe, is about 700.
Yeah. So if we were to move forward with that pre-app process and permitting, and then pull the plug after the master plan, which wouldn't be my expectation. We're not looking at a huge cost here.
1550.
Yeah. Okay.
Parker.
Well, I think you should just go get this accomplished. And, but I do need to say that I'm fine with using the library fund sales. The only other thing I could think of that would be more appropriate for the use of funds that we obtain by selling property downtown would be to buy some other property. But barring that, I would say let's go ahead and use it there. And of course, the realignment so that we've got the project in the city limits that needs sewer and water makes gobs of sense. So I'm glad you did that. And finally, just a general comment about bathrooms and benches, that the National League of Cities has acknowledged that a number of cities like Canby are aging. And they say the two most important elements for trails and parks are bathrooms and places for people to sit. So I do want to encourage that both here and almost all of our facilities. But the idea that we're actually putting money into permanent bathrooms makes a lot of sense. I think that over the next couple of years, as we progress with other park plans, I'm certainly going to be advocating that we have bathrooms and we have benches.
Mr. Mayor, may I just add a comment here? It relates to Councilor Parker and something I wanted to make sure I mentioned here regarding the bathrooms. So in the plan we have here, there's a pad for us to put the porta potties in, right? So if we, absent of a permanent restroom, we do have some accommodation of a porta potty until such time that we might have a permanent bathroom. And again, we were, as this discussion was unfolding, we were just envisioning that it might be, the timing might work to pursue putting in that permanent restroom sooner than later, because I think not just because of the dog park, but because of all those converging recreational uses we have there, it would be a good time for us to do that. So, but yeah, we do have a temporary pad kind of a thing until such time that we might have a permanent restroom there.
Sure can.
Would we assume that a restroom facility there would cost approximately $109,000?
Depending on what we put in there, but if it was
Similar to community park, I'm assuming is what you're alluding to.
If we went with something like Timber Park, we could save quite a bit more money with just a single, if that's the direction we wanted to go.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation?
Well, I don't have the price on the single, so I need that before I can give you one.
Councilor Spoon?
I'm a fan of using the money we received from selling a public space to improving another public space. That makes sense to me. It sounds like we have a lot of options, so I'm not going to get in the weeds there. I'm comfortable doing that. And then, we can figure out the rest too. I'm a fan of proceeding. It sounds like $1,550 to start the pre-application process. And then if we pull the plug after the master plan comes in, we haven't lost a significant amount of money, but we've made time. And along that, how long, Ryan, someone else, Jerry, anyone, how long the county moves at times at a glacial pace? How long is that process to go through pre-application at the county and the city? What are we looking at?
For the pre-application, they're scheduling them from 2 to 6 weeks out. For the overall process, I think we're not quite sure because one of the ideas, in addition to the utilities of this redesign, is you're moving the structures and all that stuff onto the city side. And so the county has given us an indication that it's possible that just the dog run part of it, since that's all that would be on the county side, it might just qualify for a simple site plan review, which is a pretty quick thing, but that's something we would want to confirm in the pre-application. Yeah.
It makes sense to me then. I guess my thought as far as looking for consensus is to go ahead and move forward with getting that done so that we can, it sounds like we can't do the 100% design plan until we know what the county or the city is going to require of us. So it seems like a pretty reasonable step to take in the meantime. As far as bathrooms goes, I'm also an advocate of doing a permanent bathroom. The nice thing about a dog park, porta potty is no one's favorite, but people don't tend to stay at dog parks for extended periods of time. So bathroom usage is a little bit lower than in a normal park, but I think that area warrants a bathroom anyway, with all of the people using the path, the logging road, people that use eco park trails or disc golf over there. And there's a lot of usage without a restroom facility, without a permanent one. So I would be a fan of eventually at some point looping that into this project when we get there after the master plan's done. But for now, I'm comfortable proceeding with pre-application so that we can just keep moving forward until, unless the master plan tells us otherwise.
Couple of comments. Just quick back of the napkin calculations. Looks like we'd have to do 65,000 to 70,000 to back to the sewer for the portion that we're taking over. I still, this is kind of coupled with, again, loosely at the last Parks Board meeting on Tuesday was conversation about this. It wasn't on the agenda necessarily, but an after the fact conversation of, again, to bring up the park being right there. I know concern was noise being right there along Territorial. And now, with the fire station and whatnot, I would be like to look at the Honda pits or that area down by Canby PD. We own that one. It's not, we can do it in-house in terms of, we don't have to go to county. And so I just reiterate those two pieces. In terms of funding, I think the revenue from the old library I think it should go back into the downtown. In that regards, I hear Councilor Spoon's comment of, community asset for community, asset development. And I'm not real excited about using the ARPA funds. I think that we got to have that conversation, and that is coming up on a future agenda to talk about that. And we've got emergency stuff that we've got to take care of first before I think we need to scratch a check for a dog park with ARPA funds. So, those are just my couple of nuggets there on that one. So. Councilor Banks.
To respond to something you said in terms of the Honda pits, if the objection to the property on Territorial is the noise. I think the Honda Pits is the exact wrong solution because you have the trains right there. I don't know if you've stood down there when a train went by, but it's incredibly loud.
I did take my dog down there, and unfortunately we weren't down there long enough for a train to go by.
Yeah.
But I think, again, with the quiet zone being completed, we're not going to have that loud train whistle, and it's
not the horns.
So
it's the sound of the train going by. It's the train. It's not the horns that creates like a massive sound, and it funnels down into that area. But I would also say that the other problem from my perspective with the Honda Pits is we don't have a plan for Berg Parkway yet. And it's entirely possible that Berg Parkway is going to have to go through there. So for me, and I frequent dog parks, they're often along roads like Territorial. That's not uncommon at all from my experience. So just another thought compared to what you were saying. But the noise down there when a train goes by is actually, I wouldn't want to have my dog down there when a train went by because they can't hear you. Like if you need to do a recall or if there's an issue with dogs, you can't even communicate with your dog or call them. So I would be concerned about a safety issue with the amount of noise that the train creates down in the Honda Pits.
Councilor Banks.
Thank you. I want to point out that the cost of reimbursing would be closer to $87,000 based on my rudimentary math. I would support, do we have an ending fund balance that exceeds the cost of this that we project? Like, do we already have the money in the bank that's not earmarked for any kind of expenditure? I'd rather look into something like that than spending the money from the library building or borrowing from any other fund.
I believe we do. Yeah, it's not allocated, but
sure.
Correct. Yes, I think the answer, if I'm understanding, is yes, we do. From the general fund, to be clear, right?
In the drawing, these bigger circles appear to be trees, and there appear to be none in the larger portion of like the wild dog run, not the shy dog run. Is there an issue with growing trees out there? Is that like a floodplain concern that we have? Or could we put trees out there too? I think shade is also a huge issue.
Trees would do well out there, and we kept as many as we could when we tore the residence down, and that's what you see over, and I think it's the shy dog park that we've preserved.
They're existing trees. So we could plant some more. It strikes me that trees and dog parks go well together. Perhaps unhealthy trees after a while, but yeah. Right. That's all.
Yes, Mr. Potter.
The planning director just reminded me, we did have a recent meeting with the county where they went over the plans for the Berg Parkway alternatives. It looks like the county's, this isn't 100% final, but the costs for the longer piece that would connect over the river and the railroad is probably prohibitively expensive. So it looks like they're probably not moving forward with that part of that project in their TSP. I just wanted to mention that since that was something that came up.
Scott, so with a loan from the wastewater treatment plant fund, what's the timeline in terms of paying that back, or how does that work?
Well, I know there's some.
I know it's from one bucket to another bucket, and it's all within the city.
You can,
however,
ostensibly you can borrow from some funds, but if that was the SDC fund, the issue there is that those are restricted funds. So the sooner the better. Although for certain funds, we just agree to pay back a pretty large interest rate if we borrow and then pay it back. So time is money. So once we decide to do it, we'd probably tack interest on it because we'd owe it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about, I'm sorry if I understood the slide earlier, we had borrowed $750,000.
Yeah. Well, we had actually just used sewer fund money because it was originally purchased for the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. I think Darvin Trammell wanted to plant poplars for soaking up some of the fertilizer that we were planning on making, and then and some of the water, and then it also said for potential park too. So that was envisioned, but it was only used, those funds are restricted. So to be
So essentially. the property
Yes,
belongs
super
to the
legal.
sewer.
Let's make sure whatever percentage we use, we pay that back. And that could even be a shift over from parks, SDCs or whatever.
God, okay.
And just,
Thank
just to add on to that, just to be super clear, again, I think the two issues are a little bit kind of convoluting, but what Joe just talked about is the original purchase of the property with the sewer fund, paying that back just to be, like you say, super legal and just totally above board. This is a different use than was intended, but the funding suggestions, and I don't think this would be my top recommendation to you, but you asked for some different options for funding that we could consider, and that was an idea that came out of that. But the idea of borrowing when we do have other funds available, even potentially just general fund money, I wouldn't necessarily recommend, and there would be real no advantage to that. It's just to put everything on the board so that you knew that we were looking at all options. So.
Sure. Councilor Banks.
Thank you. Jerry, are there any complications that you're aware of involving public works or the future expansion of sewer that this would create?
Well, the original plan did cause complications. This one here, you can see where the contour lines, and in the large dog park area, that's where we will be using that for stormwater someday. That will be an actual stormwater type facility for containment. So all of that, by putting all of the infrastructure onto the city, into the parkland, onto the city property, eliminates all of that. So, but the original one really did cause complications, and upsizing, we have to upsize the storm line going down Territorial, and that's going to happen, probably could happen before the dog park even goes in with future development coming in. And that would affect the other design, because it would go right through the parking lot. This one here is pushed northerly enough that we can get that done, achieve, if working with Dave with wastewater, it helps with meeting his goals too, to keep what his future needs are.
So Jerry, if I understood, so how close in proximity to the larger active dog area are we talking about containment tanks?
It's not containment tanks, it's just natural swales, and it would just be where stormwater could potentially be treated. If you look down at the Honda pits, something like that, you don't really even notice it. It's a grass swale. Albany has something similar to this, and it could be incorporated into this dog park by moving it. It helps incorporate. We're actually starting on some of this, the March 26th. We're doing plantings down there in Willow Creek for going this direction.
Okay. Councilor Spoon.
Yeah, Scott, if we had not gave you such a framework on funding, what would your, since you do this for a living, what would your recommendation on funding have been?
Well, it's a park, it's a recreational park need. So I would have suggested we explored our potential for park funding uses, SDCs. I'm fairly confident this would be SDC eligible. Would be probably my first choice, and then we have our parks fee and just our general parks budget. So that would have, if we were saying if we didn't eliminate that would be what I would suggest exploring.
Council President Hensley, did you have something?
Thank you. I'm trying to remember what I had to say. No, I'm just kidding. I have a couple of thoughts. First, I'm a little disappointed that this is the only presentation brought to us, because there was conversation about bringing the other options. The Parks Advisory Board had other ideas for where this could be placed, the Honda pits being one of them. And I would have liked to have seen, not necessarily 30% design, but at least cost and timeline options for those other ideas. And that's not here. And so I'm disappointed to not see that. I'm not a fan at all of borrowing funds from the wastewater treatment plant or any other fund. In fact, that was an idea that was shot down to build this building, if you remember. Mm-hmm. They wanted to sell as a strip, Cub did, remember? We shot down the idea of borrowing money for that. And I'm still of that same mindset. I wouldn't want to borrow from one fund to pay for another thing. As far as using the library funds, I kind of get Councilor Spoon's point and also the mayor's point. That's a conversation I'd be willing to have. I'm ambivalent at the moment. I need to hear some more conversation on how to spend those funds. And as far as the Honda pits and the Berg Parkway, it has been a conversation longer than I've been on the council, and I don't even see that thing happening in our lifetime. So it's not a problem for me to consider that. But I would like to see maybe some kind of sound steady when a train goes by down there and when a fire truck leaves the station out on Territorial. So see how, let's compare apples to apples. So I'm not sold on this plan because I don't think we've explored all the options that were brought to us from the Citizen Advisory Committee. So that's what I have for right now.
Okay. Councilor Bajoran, thoughts, comments at all?
I think we have a lot of funding options for this. It would be nice to have some follow-up conversation on all of that. As far as other locations, I mean, I'd certainly be open to having that conversation. I wonder, again, to what end, especially if this has already been, planned out, 10 years in advance. I mean, we've already looked at that possibility, I would imagine. It seems like kind of a beating a dead horse on this one. As far as the new design, I do like it a lot. I think it's much better than what the old one was. The public bathrooms, definitely, I think strike a chord with me, especially since we're trying to improve Community Park 2. That would be a necessary step, I think, for this. As for noise level, I guess not to put too fine a point on it, but if your dog is spooking that much by such a noise, maybe a dog park isn't the right place. So that I think needs to be just brought into consideration, that there's going to be noise level wherever we go with it. But just something to kind of talk about a little further and just make sure we're not just, arguing about it for no reason.
Thank you, Councilor Bajoran. Councilor Hensley.
Just a quick note, this presentation wasn't in the packet, so could this be emailed to us? Thank you.
Any other comments? Sorry.
In order to move forward, would we need to make a motion to authorize Scott to start the pre-app process?
It's probably more just a consensus head nod of,
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to see it.
Okay. Anything else that you need, Scott, from us on this next steps or potential topics?
Just to clarify the consensus, because there's not as many of you here. You're saying go forth and do the permitting, or at least the pre-app processes with both the county and the city, and try to start developing of getting closer to the finalized plan.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's where I was at.
Okay.
We don't want to do any final approval until we can confirm that the master plan says what the data they gave us already indicates it will.
And at some point, I think we definitely do want permanent bathrooms there, but possibly not on the same property. Possibly more equidistant between Eco Park so we can share it. So, I'm not sure it's part of this project, but it's certainly related.
I have one more question. One of the things we talked about was the sidewalk from the logging road to where the dog park would be. I'm a huge fan of that. It's not the safest route to walk right now. Would that be something that would have to go through planning as well? Like, what does that look like?
That's a project that we've been working with Traffic Safety Commission. We budget it. When my engineer's on vacation, when he gets back next week, he's gonna show me the final plans. We're gonna put it out through the bidding process, and you guys will see that all here at council soon.
Great.
And also street lighting, sidewalk.
Great. Anything else? Okay. We're going to move on to mayor's business. Just a couple of things. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. As many of you are aware, our mask mandate has been lifted by the governor October.
Whatever.
Geez, March 12th. My 2 cents on the matter is this. It is still, there are still people that are choosing to wear masks. And I just ask that we be mindful of that. It's their choice to do that. And it is those of us that are not wearing masks, it is our choice not to wear them as of right now. And I just ask that we be respectful of each other in that capacity on choosing to, if those that choose to wear a mask, that they are extended that courtesy and not poked at or made fun of or addressed negatively for choosing to do that. I want to thank the last Wednesday, we as a council worked for about 3 hours on and off Wednesday to do our goal setting session. And I just want to thank the council for the hard work that went into pulling that together. I think there's a long list of items that we pulled together of things to move the city forward. I commend everyone on the hard work on that. There's a great number of things on that list that we've already got going. And I just, again, thank you all for being here on that Wednesday to work through that and work diligently on that. So I think Scott, the facilitator, is working on getting that wrapped up and back to us here soon. The piece that just want to talk about, there's been a request about having a police presence here at council meetings going forward. I just, before staff runs with that, I just thought I'd bring that here as a conversation piece for the council. If that is something that we want on a regular basis, we feel we need on a regular basis, that this is a temporary thing, or we want this as a permanent piece. Is this a conversation piece to put on the agenda for the next meeting to have conversation about?
Probably better than the mayor's comments. Yeah.
Well, I'm commenting if that is something that I see head shake saying that we should have that as a conversation piece. Okay. I will work with Scott on that matter. Park board met last night, and as you heard from Scott, we're finishing up, coming close to the end here of the park master plan. Tentatively looking at upcoming agendas, we're looking at potentially probably the first Wednesday in May, so the 4th, to do that joint work session for the parks and the council to go through that draft. It's not going to be the pretty final version. It's probably going to be a lot of text for us to go through and read and unpack. So that'll probably be an earlier start to our usual Wednesday city council meetings. Yes, Councilor Spoon.
Is that something that we can get in advance of the meeting so we can look at it before the meeting and have questions prepared? Or are you imagining that it'll be presented to us and we'll work through it then?
I can work that out with Scott and find out where the company, the consultants are on that one. I would suspect that would, their goal is, from what I understand, is Scott was saying, is that their goal is to be done with that kind of the draft to be done kind of the beginning of the month. Looking at agenda items and things that are coming up. We have budgeting coming up, and there's a piece that we need to discuss prior to budgeting, and that is the road maintenance fee. And so that is, I didn't think putting both of those on the same night was probably in our best interest as a council, because we tend to get rummy after about 9 o'clock. So that's why looking at the 4th being that piece to that. But I will work with Scott to see when they get done and how quickly we can, get that out to both boards to look at and prepare for that meeting. Cool. Other topics of conversation that evening was just an update on Maple Street Park. So looking at the netting piece, they're looking at, there's conversation, Jerry and Barry, correct me if I'm wrong. There's still a lot of desire for a tennis court being put back in at Maple Street Park. So there's conversation of looking at putting the tennis court where the south basketball court. I'm seeing head nods from staff and from the committee chair. So it wouldn't be a basketball court anymore. We're turning that into a tennis court. So that's being looked at. Let's see what else there. We're getting a lot of great feedback from many of the pickleball aficionados that think that we have literally knocked it out of the park with. I didn't mean to be punny there, with that piece. So kudos to Jerry and his team for getting that ironed out, and the Parks team on that piece. So quickly, Maple Street Park is becoming the gem of the park system. So lots of work has gone into that piece. There's also an update on the picnic shelter for Locust Street, and that's going to be done in here late, like next month, I think, as the plan, as weather permits. Okay. Yeah, it all depends on the weather to get that completed. And then signage, there was a conversation about signage for just kind of rules of engagement and courtesy for the pickleball courts that was reviewed, and then looking at doing some signage along the logging trail on etiquette for walkers, runners, bike riders, etc. So we're trying to narrow that down a little bit on that. I think it covers the high points there on the park board piece. And then C4, the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee last meeting went it veered dramatically off of transportation and land use and got into a conversation about homeless shelters and how the county is looking at the development of those throughout the county. And so that conversation, Commissioner Savas and I, who both are the co-chairs to that committee, drafted a letter that will be shared with the other mayors in Clackamas County tomorrow at the meeting with Chair Smith about that, and where's the BCC stand on that? What's that going to look like? A couple of the mayors had commented that they don't want to be the only cities that have services, and they are not the only ones that want to be the ones that have shelters and therefore having the whole county directing those with needs or help that need help to those cities. So Wilsonville, Oregon City, and then kind of the Happy Valley unincorporated Clackamas County area. So one of the things I would ask the council to consider in our goal piece when we talk about housing is what is our appetite for that, and being and at what level do we want to be in that conversation? Is in great, have fun, Clackamas County, go do, or down to yes, we want to partner with the county and potentially have a homeless shelter with services here in Canby. So something to be noodling, and again, that may end up on as potential action items under the housing piece for our goals that we had last week, just as a thought. And then, I think that's all that I have from the last meeting. Councilor comments and liaison reports. We'll start with Mr. Bajoran.
All right, thank you. CUB did meet very recently. I was not at the meeting due to family constraints, but a couple of things that were brought up. One is the lack of electric vehicle charging stations in Canby. We apparently have only 2 locations in town of a certain variety of charging station that is not, I guess, appropriate to all uses. So CUB is looking into possible alternatives and ways to get more of those charging stations in town as those vehicles are becoming a little bit more prevalent. And then on another note there, the water master plan bid process is complete. So we're going to push that ball forward here a little bit.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Bajoran. Councilor Spoon.
Yeah, it's interesting that Councillor Bajorn brought up charging stations because I visited another community on the west side and they had stands all through their downtown with solar panels on top that you could just plug in devices and charge. And I thought that would be something we might want to talk about, but it sounds like it's already a conversation at Cub as well. But and they also had them next to like bike tool stations. It was great. As far as our downtown growing and becoming more pedestrian and bike friendly, that's something we might want to talk about. Jerry, when are the pickleball courts getting sealed and when will they be play ready? I'm ready to go.
Yes, we all are. And a lot of people have been calling in and are excited about it. But we have two things left to do is replace the lights. They're the wrong ones, but you'll see they're on right now, but the new ones that are coming will be motion. So when people come on. And then the ceiling, we hope to have done in the next month and a half, depending on weather still, but
awesome.
So soon.
So hopefully by summer we'll be.
Yep. And we've already been working with Mr. Archer and Jamie Stickle over a ribbon cutting date in June. So it's all coming soon.
Awesome. And thank you. It sounds like one of the questions I was going to ask, a number of community members have been asking me when we're going to address the street maintenance fee, but it sounds like you said we're going to do that before budget. So the next couple months. Okay. And then when we get the stuff back from the consultant regarding our goal setting, is there going to be a prioritized list of work sessions or how will we sort out what we're addressing? One of the things we talked about last Wednesday was having a discussion about board and committee appointments and liaison appointments. And I was just wondering what your vision is for moving things forward and getting them on the agenda so we can make progress.
Well, I think that's going to depend on what comes back from the consultant. Okay. And then depending on, as we went through that work session, right? So there's the council portion of it, and then there's the city staff portion of it. And so the city staff portion of it is going to be a bulk of the action items that support what we've put out there. So, I presumably that staff will need some time to work on what some of those action items would look like before we dive in and then go, where does that go? Some of the work session pieces that are already slated and trying to move forward. So like the road maintenance fee piece, we are going to be discussing here at one of our April meetings so that we can have that for the budgeting process. So we know where that's at or what we're looking at in that regards and what next steps we want to have with that. The park master plan work session. And then from there, depending on what comes from that might end up prioritizing certain things as well.
Sure.
So right now it's going to be just kind of a little bit of a wait and see. And then it's going to be up to, I guess, this group to determine what that's going to look like in terms of work sessions and how that's going to get plotted out. So from there, then it's going to be that with normal city business that we've got to incorporate into how those work sessions will go.
Great. And then I don't have any liaison comments tonight, but I do want to wish the dance team good luck at state this Friday.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a bit of pressure.
This would be 8 in a row.
Or not. That's the agony.
Carolinas are singing with them. So
terrific.
For part of the dance. Yeah.
Cool.
Councilor Parker.
Thank you. I'm sorry Barry left. I had some information I wanted to share with him on the Traverso property. The Parks Committee, I think, really needs to get engaged in the Traverso property because eventually it's going to be a park along with our logging road. And so I've been saying this for nearly a year and a half. But apparently we are getting a member of the Parks Committee that will be joining the Bike Committee on Tuesday, Tuesday, April 12th, in which there's going to be an open house discussion, primarily again for the neighbors of that property, but it's going to be to further discuss the property and what happens with it. So I appreciate the fact that the Bike Committee is continuing to go along, but I'd like to get your support as well, Mayor, to encourage that this become a by committee thing, because eventually this will become a city park. The Public Works Director and I had a discussion about the sign out there at the entrance to the Traverso property. And as I recall, the sign says private road. And that's not true. It is actually public property that we own. Now, you went on to say that until we get a plan for it, we don't want people on it. And I realize that's a bigger sign, but I just have a little bit of a problem of us not telling the truth, of saying this is a private road, don't go on here. It's a public piece of property, don't go on here. But if we can have a discussion at the management level on that. On the dog park, back in November, when we were asked to delay on it, the primary argument was it's only going to be another 2 months. That in February we'll have this a master plan all wrapped up, and now the date is May 4th for the introduction of the final plan, which is going to take a couple meetings, which means to me that we stand a good chance of not building any parks in the next fiscal year, because we're not going to be able to authorize any funds because we will not have completed the process. And this was one of my arguments for proceeding with the dog park, was that I don't want us to go a year and a half without building another park. So yeah, I think it was appropriate that we ask staff to proceed. We still have a go, no go on the final at the end of May. But I'm concerned that us now with a new schedule, and no judgment on this, things can take a while, take whatever the time they take, but it pushes us up to a point where by May, you've already written your budget. And we are having 2 budget meetings, and I don't think we'll be able to put numbers in for a park. And my suggestion is that we have a mid-year budget meeting in order for us to do a supplemental budget, because I don't want to wait a year and a half to build another park. And then finally, speaking of Willow Creek, this is always fun to plant some trees. We've got this tremendous coalition going on with Canby Area Beautification, and also the Clackamas Soil and Water District, along with a private business, Valley Environmental, and our Public Works. And it is going to be on March 26th, 10 a.m., out there by Eco Park, and we've got 500 trees to plant. So come on out and be a part of that legacy. Jerry, you got anything else on that?
Yeah, we will be meeting at Public Works parking lot.
There we go. Thanks.
So, and we worked out all the waiver forms with our lawyer, and we're ready to go on this, and our wastewater, stormwater regulatory team's excited about this. So this is going to be fun. We got a lot of people excited about it.
Those forms are important. Watch out when I got a shovel in my hand. That's all, Mayor. Thanks.
Great. Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually only have a question for Councilor Parker. And that was, unless I missed it, did you say where the open house discussion about Traverso was taking place on the 12th?
That will be here at City Hall.
Here, thank you.
We're all good meetings should be held at 5:30.
5:30 on the 12th here. Okay, thank you for that. And I don't have much in the way of a liaison report other than to say that on C4 level, there was an email that I got, and I'm not sure if congratulations or condolences are in order for being reelected co-chair with Commissioner Savas.
Thanks.
But that is all.
You've got a bunch of extra time.
Well, it's no different than what it's been. So, yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate
Thanks.
the leadership that you're taking on this. That's important. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Great. Circle back to Councilor Parker. Sorry, Councilor Banks, we're right with you. There has been a member coming from the Bike and Ped Committee to the Park Advisory Board meeting. So, and then they have been giving them time on the agenda to bring up any parks piece or the bike and ped pieces. And then the chair has been zooming in as well. So,
well, you know what I want to try to avoid.
I do.
Is us getting down the road here and hearing some of the same things that we're hearing about the dog park here is, hey, you didn't involve us.
Right.
And the way we got into the bike committee for people's information on them doing this park thing was that they were able to apply for a grant under their authority as a bike committee to get this thing going with consultants and that sort of thing. And I kept bringing to the council that this was going on,
yeah,
and that at some point this is going to become part of our city park system. So I just want to make sure the parks folks feel like they're invited.
Councilor Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Library Advisory Board met on Tuesday, Pi Day, 3/14. The advisory board has approved a non-collection materials policy that I believe was or will be given to Scott and Joe for review. There's policies on our collection materials, but there are some materials that the library has that are actually not in circulation, so there's no policy governing that. Secondly, they're taking a look at city code ordinance involving the library advisory board itself and relevant ORSs. And there are some areas where they're just looking to see, are we in compliance with state law on this? And there are some adjustments that we're going to be making. And I think that's going to come to us. For example, the library advisory board used to be 5 people and the quorum was 3. And then it was bumped to 7 people. And then now recently 8 when we added the high school person as a full voting member, but the quorum is still listed as 3 in our code. Yeah. So it's just little things like that. The Canby School Board met Monday this week. The really big news out of the school districts is that the mask mandate has been lifted, and we started a new term in the high school. The elementary and middle schools are on a different cycle, but all new kids, about 20% of our students wearing masks. I appreciated your comments, Mr. Mayor, about respecting people who choose to continue to wear masks. That was a concern that we had at the schools, that there would be bullying behavior. And we haven't seen any of that. We haven't heard of any reports of it. And so that's nice. And it is refreshing to see smiles again. It is so difficult to teach when you can't read the faces. The awkwardness is that students in the hallway now will say hi to me from last term. I have no idea who they were because they're not wearing their mask.
I was just going to ask you if you able to recognize any of your students.
No, it really is. It's extremely hard now. Other than that, it was a relatively non-eventful board meeting. There's a long discussion about a policy that they voted down. So there we go.
Perfect.
That's it.
Great. Thank you very much. Second opportunity for citizen input. Shocking. Mr. Patton, please.
Okay, I just really wanted to quickly, I forgot to mention, thank you, Maya, for all of your work with helping to coordinate all the interviews. And Mayor Hodson, next 2 Wednesdays, you and I have a date, interviews. Just make sure we're on time. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. I do have them. I do have those in my calendar.
Sweet.
Both my personal and my work calendar. So yes. And I'll make sure to check Waze accordingly so I can be prompt. Great. Any other citizen input? Yes, Ms. Carmel.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to say, you all think this park thing has been a long road, but I chaired the 2013 Dog Park Committee, which existed for 6 months and then got dismissed arbitrarily 1 week before the city council meeting was going to hear a report from us. But I want to tell you that even though it's been a long time to deliver this baby, I'm really happy that this dog park is coming, and thank you all for being so interested. I will do my best to help the Parks Board feel and be involved as we move forward from here. And I think there are some intermediate opportunities for the Parks and Rec Board to have some comments about a draft that won't quite be in the semi-final semi-draft. I think there are some ways we can build in some intermediate activity with the Park Board that would be good medicine for the situation and also help. So, but thank you for getting along with this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Barbara. Appreciate it. All right. Action review. Miss Maya.
Don't we have a city administrator?
I had already crossed it off, so I just.
I was going to talk about
you know how many times I've done that? You know. All right, Scott, you got 5 minutes. Go.
I will be much shorter than that.
Here, I'll put 5.
There you go. First is your bi-monthly reports are included in your packet. And as always, lots of good information. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Second, I also wanted to mention regarding the library, there's an update on the library hours. This was announced by our library director, I think, at this same meeting that Councilor Bangs was just talking about. So pre-COVID, we were at the we have an IGA with our consortium and with the county and the library district that we have to meet a certain number of hours, and the minimum that we have is 50 hours. We've been below that since COVID, and with kind of, closing and then slowly reopening and getting back to normal. So right now we're at 44 hours a week, Monday through Saturday. We are closed on Sundays. We've been closed on Sunday. But effective April 4th, we will be going up to 50 hours. So we're going to add 6 hours a week to the library. Not adding any more days, so still Monday through Saturday, but we're extending the hours, and the 50 hours gets us back to full compliance with our expectations with our consortium, and basically back to pre-COVID hours. So just that. And then the last is another quick update on the Arch and the Quiet Zone project. Again, the Quiet Zone is virtually done as far as the construction, except for the final striping. Still waiting for that weather that we need to hit to give us the ability to put down the final striping that then allows the railroad to come and meet with us and hopefully sign off soon thereafter. The Arch, hopefully everybody's had a chance to see that by now. And that's nearing completion, including you may notice if you go out there this evening, some additional lighting that is happening there. And so folks might want to check that out at night. It's very cool. And we have some color changing options that we'll be using over, different special holidays and different events. So
Is tomorrow a special day?
maybe it might be a day that you might do green things.
Green light?
So I urge people to check that out at night. It really is cool. And we do have a fun feature that we can change the lighting around on that. And then also just council again, so you know, we are working on getting a ribbon cutting celebration for that. We'll be putting something together and keeping you informed. And then also to go with the Arch, in case you had forgotten or weren't aware, there is a time capsule that goes with that that's been discussed, and it is being worked on. Jamie Stickle, who was here earlier, is working with our Heritage Landmark Commission, HLC. They're helping to put that together, putting this time capsule in place. So that'll be part of the celebration and sealing a time capsule in the Arch. So that is my report. Hopefully I stayed under 5 minutes.
Yeah, can I borrow 2 minutes?
How many minutes did you use?
Let's say 3. Yeah. So you yield your time.
I'm sorry, but I don't have on my agenda assistant city manager reports. So
I'm his designee at this point right now.
Oh, sure.
No, so 2 things. The first is the organization that wants to try to utilize fields and all of that for soccer reached out to me this last week, and I didn't want to assure them that I would even meet with them without your guys' approval, because I'm your guy. And so I wanted, in abundance of caution, just to get consensus, if you don't mind. And I think I'll take
for both of our
yeah,
time.
they asked for our time. So if you guys are fine with us at least pursuing, not pursuing anything, but actually
gathering,
being
yes.
willing to meet and converse. And then piggybacking on that, I had sent off a very concise version of the covenants that are on the Wayside properties to you folks, with some maps that I thought were the most instructive, and then even some of the county code more recently. I sent it off, and at the end, and maybe it wasn't highlighted well enough, I was asking if there was consensus for me to go ahead and send that on to the Parks Board people. So I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity before I sent that off to give the blessing for me to communicate that with the Parks Board as well, so that they have that in their hot hands.
Thanks, Joe, I'd appreciate it if we could. Yeah, Councilor Spoon.
Related to that, will you put in some sort of determination? I mean, reading through a bunch of code can be a little laborious for people that don't do it on a regular basis, but some or are you just sending the code? Okay.
No, what I'll do is I'll send those packets, but I'll send, and I'll copy you guys on it so you know what I'll say. But it's the same sort of explanations that I've been giving over about the last 3 emails. So then hopefully that is helpful. And then people can yell at me if they want it, right? So, okay, thanks.
Thanks. Scott, I wanted to revisit real quick, the time capsule. The Heritage Landmark Commission is working on that. One of the things when we did the most recent 9/11 remembrance ceremony at the fire station, they opened the time capsule from Ackerman and the Peace Garden and whatnot. And there was some really fantastic newspaper articles and clippings from various points in time, letters that were written around that time by students, et cetera. And much of that, or many pieces of that, were very water damaged. So I'm sure that the Heritage Landmark Commission is going to do a fantastic job. I have no doubt about that. I just want to reemphasize that occurred with that time capsule, and that whatever sealing of those documents and things that we can do to preserve those for whatever time limit is that we're going to open that on 30, 40, 50 years or whatever, that it comes out pristine and well preserved.
Thank you for that feedback. That's actually great feedback. We'll take that into account and do what we can to avoid that issue.
Yeah, no fault. I mean, things change and whatnot. I mean, that was a long time. I mean, a long time ago. So
students are writing letters. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, they don't write anymore. Yeah, newspaper. I mean, just that in their own right, right? Like newspaper. What is that? Can we do something like TikTok, something like to go in there? Great. So now, Maya, action review.
You have approved the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the January 19th, 2022 City Council regular meeting, and approved ordinance number 1569 and resolution number 1363.
Fantastic. Thank you, Maya. Great job tonight.
Mr. Mayor, do we move to adjourn or do we move to recess to go to executive session?
We move to recess to go to exec session.
Then I move that we go into executive session per ORS 192.660, parent 2, parent H, to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of the public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to adjourn our regular meeting and move to, not adjourn our meeting, but move to exec session under ORS 192.660, parent 2, parent H, which for the agency to meet or the council to meet in exec session to discuss with council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0. I will quickly read this so that, we have officially moved into an exec session. And Canby, good night. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to take a quick break before we go into exec session. So we'll go in 5 minutes. So thank you, Canby.